So I like to get into a lot of things that people don't talk about. And on this one, I want to talk about a few things about the jab and where we are exactly with all of this and how it relates to Hebrews or black people. And first off, let me say something. I understand the things that I talk about are sometimes touchy. And they are things that people just want to leave alone. And the broader of society just kind of dance around. So, look, it's up to, I'm just going to say, someone that's black to talk about black things because no one else seems to want to talk about it. And if we do talk about it, we touch on it very briefly and then we move past it. And let's just say white society. So we're dancing around a lot of these topics, but we're not really getting on it. And basically, someone just has to talk about it. So with that being said, my name is Cvaad, and let's get into it. So look, real fast. I don't think we touched a lot about how the germ, we'll call it, COVID, whatever, what I'm talking about, right? I guess no one's saying it, so why should I? I don't want to ruin my channel. Not like it matters. But it's, so no one's really talking about that and the lack of in Africa. Now, if you guys didn't know, and this is for everyone out there, including you kids, what's going on? Africa has probably one of the lowest infection rates of the germ. And if you guys don't know what the germ is, you got to dig and look into this a little harder and understand what I'm trying to say. But the germ. So why is that? Why is Africa so not affected by the germ? Now, I think this goes on and on with, so many other things, but I'm going to, just kind of tell you what it is. We're special. And I'm just kidding. No, but for real though. No, honestly, there's something going on down there. There's something within our DNA, like I told you about, that is helping with this. And I think it has something to do with the A00 genotype that we're kind of lost on. And there's also something in our blood that gives us an immunity to, or 50 to 60% less parasites that kept us from something called malaria. Now, malaria is a virus that is picked up in the African continent. So back in the day when people were trying to take over Africa, like every country basically has, except for the United States, funny enough, or they took us they took us into slavery, but they didn't try to take over the entire continent. But everyone else did. Anyways, so everyone's done some harm to Africa in some way. And I think this is getting overlooked in so many ways. Now, I don't care if they have a black month, whatever it's called, whatever, Black Month. I don't care about that. We're talking about paying homage and or paying what you owe to black people in general. Africans, I can say as well, because we've taken a lot from them and not acknowledged them as much as we should. There's a war going on in Congo right now over the stuff that Teslas and cell phones are made over. And guess who's at the top of that? Yes, you know who. So let's just say that these people are destroying themselves over stuff that they would have no idea about and not even worry about. They're peaceful people inherently. Black people are peaceful people. It's just it's their DNA. If you go to Africa, you'll see that. They're very loving. You always watch those shows. You have this misconception. I saw a white woman call black people killers and rapists and thugs. And I said, what are you talking about? I said, there's more rapists in white society. And then, there's more people coming home and knocking out their whole family in white society. I saw this guy knock off his whole family because he's having a bad day at work. Oh, well, maybe he has some mental issues. Mental issues, nothing. Those are demons. Anyways, so let's talk about this. Why isn't Africa being affected by the germ? Well, I'm going to tell you right now, whether you believe it or not, has a lot to do with their DNA. There is something that is in there that is ancient. There is something that is in there that is ancient. I'm going to say it again. There is something that is in black people's DNA that is ancient and protects us, from things like that. There's a spiritual aspect and a biblical aspect that you can't ignore, and it will come to light sooner or later. And for those who have ears to hear and eyes to see, you'll understand that I'm not lying. Give it to Yeshua and have him open up the Bible for you and pick it up and pick up the Bible and open it up and allow him to lead you to what you need to see. Right now it's becoming more relevant that Africa is not going through the same crisis, and all this stuff is all verifiable. You can get on Google and Google why isn't the whatever virus affecting Africa, and just read about it yourself. But there's not really too many good answers. Scientists are pretty baffled by it. And they just don't know how to explain it because, quite frankly, they don't have the resources everyone else has. They don't have as we know, the jabs are not good, but they didn't take the jabs because they didn't have them. I think they got like a very small course of it. And it's just, they didn't have them, and no one provided them. I think at first they were trying to test the virus on people. Right? You guys remember that? Hopefully you do. But if you don't, look it up. So at first, when all this was going on, they were trying to test the jabs on the African continent. Isn't that something? They were trying to use these guys as test dummies. Like always, we got to do something, bring it to Africa. Who cares about them? Just absolutely terrible. Absolutely terrible. And what's crazy about Africa is you guys don't, well, not you guys, but let's just say white society doesn't know how much they love Caucasians. They love them out there because, I'll tell you something. Africans and African Americans are a different breed. We grew up in America under slavery. I am a descendant of slavery, as for most of the African Americans here. Well, actually, all of them. If they're African American and not Caribbean. But, Caribbean, they're slaves too, but their slaves came to a different part. Anyways, long story. So, all of them are slave descendants. So we're all slave descendants. So we came here hundreds of years ago, and our ancestors were slaves. We've been under slavery now for the past 400 something years, if we're talking in human terms. But they didn't. Keep that in mind. They didn't experience slavery. And if they did, it was on a different level. Excuse me, sorry, I was yawning. They did if it was a different level, and they just weren't affected by it like we were because they're at home on the continent. So keep in mind that every time they see a Caucasian coming with food. They see a Caucasian coming with cameras and doing something to raise money or whatever the case is. Now, they don't understand the other side of it. They don't understand it. They don't understand the colonization. Because the colonization has been long gone from Africa. It's in different countries on the continent, but the majority, like how it used to be 100 years ago, when the colonization was rampant and they were just killing Africans out there, has not been seen for about 100 years. So they are 2 generations removed from that. So they don't remember it. And everyone in Africa right now is really young. There is not a lot of old people in Africa. I think like 80% of the continent is like under 30 or something like that. So they don't know about white people or anybody else. They don't know the rabbit. They don't know the danger that is behind that. They don't understand it. And I heard a very popular African comedian talking about this the other day, and it's very true. They don't understand that, the manipulation that's happening. They don't get it. And they're such a kind people. It was written in a book, and I think it was in the 1800s, about how the colonizers came down to Africa. And the first thing that they wrote, that they were a very docile race of people. They said all the Africans, the black Africans, excuse me, are a very docile race of people, meaning that they're stupid. Not stupid. They're just, you would call them stupid. We would call it love. But the guy's like, yeah, these guys are dumb. You know what I mean? Like, they're docile. They're stupid. We can just mow them over. We can mow them over. We can do anything we want to them. We take their women, pillage their kids, whatever, infest them with disease, knock down their homes, take their land, take their gold, boom. But in reality, they're not. They're docile. They're humbled. They're filled with the Spirit of God. There's God there in different ways. Although some of them do cater to different idols, we'll say idol worship. God is still on that land. They're not technically advanced like us. They're not, a lot of places, of course, still even in the more developed places, they're not technically advanced at the West, and that's good to a lot of sense. They've been, they've been sheltered by a lot of the stuff that we have had to go through, especially African Americans. You see, in the black community, African Americans are basically just the war dog. We are the gang members of Africans, because we have had to go through so much, and we are just awakened with rage and understanding. We know what's going on because we've been put through this here in this country. We know. The rest of the world knows we know, except for Americans just don't understand it. But the world knows that African Americans know. They've been through some stuff. So with that being said, what's going on in the African continent and why they are immune somewhat to this stuff? It's by the grace of God. You're going to find out very soon that what's happening over there is far more spiritual than you can ever imagine. And I'm warning everyone now, whether Gentile or Hebrew, the promised land that you will find that God, Yahuwah, spoke about in the Bible is within Africa. Now, people say, no, it's in Palestine, it's in Jerusalem. Well, keep in mind that Palestine and Jerusalem was once connected to Africa and still is connected to Africa. But it used to be connected to Africa a lot more. But again, still is connected to Africa. They might not claim to be in the African continent, but it is connected to Africa. Literally, look on the map. But the greater plains and let's just say the wilderness, that is considered to be Africa. That was not Jerusalem. Jerusalem is Israel. Israel's too small. If you read the Bible carefully, it will bring you into the plains of Africa through Egypt. That is where the promised land is. That is where you're going to find God. That is where you're going to find the Garden of Eden. That is where you're going to find peace and security. Something's going to happen in the near future that brings light to all this. And you will finally see that the crazy guy that you were listening to on YouTube named YXXVI could have been right. Hallelujah. Hallelujah. Anyways, 14 minutes. I'm getting out of here. Take care of yourself. God bless you. And may the spirit of Yahusha, I hope I said that right, Yahusha. I'm still learning my Hebrew. I'm still learning my Hebrew terms. You guys must forgive me. Yahusha, Yeshua, be with you. And may the mighty name of baby Jesus, that's what we here in the West like to call, that they call Jesus, baby Jesus. Baby Jesus. You get it when Mary had the baby. be with you, because we are coming on some perilous times. And without the spirit of Yeshua leading you and providing you grace, there's going to be some things that you just won't make it through. Now, how far are we away from the stuff really hitting the fan? Who knows? I'm going to say by my calculations, honestly, today it's probably February 1st right now. Let's see. It's January 31st. We're still in January. Hallelujah. So January 31st, 2023. I think we are probably around 5 to 6 months away from, maybe 4 to 6 months away from something happening very drastic within the world. Something happening. If I'm doing my times properly, I already feel like we're in the tribulation. I think we're going through the first half of the tribulation, and the second half is coming here very soon. So maybe I'm right, maybe I'm wrong, who knows? But if that's the case, you need to get yourself together with Yahuwah. In other words, that's God. You need to get yourself together with God. You need to get yourself together with Jesus, okay, Yeshua. And you need to get your ducks in order, because there's something coming. Now, I'll say this again, that the road to hell is wide and the road to heaven is very narrow. So what that means is there's going to be a lot more people in hell than there are in heaven. And you're going to think back at the times that you heard someone testify to you about these things when the time comes. But to keep in mind, if you don't make the conscious decision to change, there's no change that can be done. You have something called free will. And free will is exactly that, free will. But it's not free. It does come with a cost. Hallelujah. Have a wonderful evening.